looking at the National Collaborative on Workforce and Disability Guidepost for Success. Now this is going to go over what transition plans are and identify the predictors of success, what makes for a really good transition plan for a young person. And this is based on an extensive literature review of research, demonstration projects, effective practices and lessons from youth development, quality education, and workforce development programs. I've mentioned those 4 elements of life: love and relationships, independent living, further education, and employment. All of these things getting incorporated into the young person's life so that they can progress and grow into productive members of society. The study concluded that all youth need access to high-quality standards-based education. And this is really, back we were talking about presuming competence, and I think you may have heard the morning keynote yesterday, the idea of using love-based language, avoiding those like Tom can't or Tom won't. Focus more on Tom can and Tom will. Because young people are looking for someone to believe in themselves. And it can be you. Believe in your young people. They have it in them, and you can help make it happen. Letting them know about information about career options and exposure to the world of work, including structured internships. Getting back to those transition plans where the answer is often, I don't know. Our young people often don't get exposure to the outside world. They're not exploring what's available to them or what their options are in terms of jobs. Or maybe they want to design video games, but once they get into a video game design office, or they may soon discover it's not always fun and games playing video games all day, there's actual work involved. You may have to design coding or research the market or look into why this game sold and this didn't. There's a lot more analysis and actual work involved. It's not all fun and games. You should have fun on the job, but it's not always going to be fun all the time. So being able to get past that misconception and that, yes, you can still follow your dreams, but sometimes a reality check is needed. And our young people need to be able to go through different work environments for where they see themselves going. So when I was in college, I knew I wanted to do accounting, and the accounting association I was in, or AA for short, they took us on tours of local accounting firms. We got to see the offices, we got to see the people that worked there, the type of environment. And that really helped me discover what it would be like working in an office. And also working with the accounting association, I learned how to write a resume, how to do an interview, how to have an elevator pitch, 30 seconds of telling your story to, let's say, the CEO of a company. Getting that practice, having our young people get that practice, that exposure, that exploration that they really need if they're going to gain some life experience and evolve to the next level. I mentioned like Junior Chamber International, Toastmasters. These are opportunities to develop social, civic, and leadership skills. Because take a Toastmasters meeting, for example, you would sit in front of a group of people and take people through the agenda, or you would time a person's speech, or you would count how many times you hear These are all tasks that help develop leadership skills, listening, delegation, motivation, mentoring. Before you know it, you start to become more attentive, you start to be more motivating, you start to see that you are a part of a group and a part of something bigger than yourself. If our young people can establish the idea that they are part of something bigger than themselves, that's going to help them be better people. Strong connections to caring adults. You're all here today, so you must have some degree of caring, and you do want to bring out the best in your young people, so I commend you all for being here today. Having access to safe places to interact with their peers. Sometimes it's about forming a club yourself. In my hometown, I started a game night for young people that I grew up with. We play board games once a month and order pizza. It's something we keep going. We've been doing that for about 9 years now. Like the second to last Friday, we'll arrange you still come to the game night, or the pizza, we'll play games. And this could be the only social opportunity, or the only, however small it may be, circle of friends that these young people have. but it gives them something to look forward to. And in my case, I always make sure to keep the house clean because I'm going to be having company soon. Better straighten up. Support services and specific accommodations to allow them to become independent adults. Allow them to become independent adults. Because I know it can be painful to watch them do a task and you want to step in, oh, let me do it for you. They have to be the ones to live their own lives. They have to be the ones to see things through until the end, finish what they start, and be taught the skills needed. Yes, there are a lot of things to cover, and I've got a whole chart of them and come to life, but by mastering one skill at a time. In my case, bill paying. And I still pay my mother's bills or write checks for them every Sunday. Basically, starting with, rather than piling a bunch of bills in front of them, start with the water bill. How do you pay the water bill? You identify the stub, you tear it off, put in the amount, write the check, note the account number, put it in the envelope and then it gets shut, stamp it. And nowadays there are online paying options, but if you were to use the paper snail mail trail, that's how it would be done. There are a lot of steps, but once they master it, once they see why it's important, and then they can start to move on to other tasks. Before you know it, they start to become an independent adult and can very well move on to another household or move out one day. This is what needs to be done. Empower over disempower. So let's summarize again the collaborative on workforce and disability. These are the 5 guideposts for success. It's almost like going through a Jeopardy category board here. We have youth development and leadership, family involvement and supports, school-based preparatory experiences, career preparation and work experience, and connecting activities. Let's look at these 5 one at a time. But basically, the Alliance has determined that a common and shared framework to help school systems and communities identify what youth need in order to achieve successful participation in post-secondary education and training and civic engagement, meaningful employment, and adult life. Those are those 4 elements we talked about. Love and relationships, independent living, further education, and employment. We're going to go into them in detail here. But first, look at all these predictors of post-school success. How many of these do you think are taught in the classrooms today? This is what our young people need if they're going to be moving forward and making and creating the lives that they want for themselves. A lot of them we've gone over already. Parental expectations, parental involvement, paid employment work experiences, not just internships, because my very first permanent job, I'd had internships, volunteer work, and temp jobs up to that point. Once I finally got that permanent job, it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Briefly though, because when I disclosed to my manager, he said, "You tricked me. You withheld that information during the job interview. I don't have to help you and I'm not going to." I think that was kind of the beginning of the end for my accounting career. But having a job coach to go to bat for me during the HR debates, having someone I know I could confide in, having a good support system, those allies we talked about, that helped me get through that rocky period in my life. And our young people need a whole team. It really does take a village. You may have heard that term before. It really does take a village of people to help bring out the best in a person with autism. When the person with autism knows that they have a support system and that these are doable, they can be accomplished, then they start to see that they have the power. They can do it. And they don't have to do it alone. They shouldn't have to do it alone. So looking at youth development and leadership, youth acquire the skills, behaviors, and attitudes that enable them to learn and grow in self-knowledge, social interaction, and physical and emotional health. Thinking about love and relationships and personal health. Now this ties back to love yourself and the mantra, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. One thing I do is I meditate every morning. Take some time to take a few deep breaths. Think Think about what I'm grateful for. Know that I'm part of the universe and the universe is part of me. And release negative energy to make way for positive. Mind you, I'm not on any medication. I'm doing meditation. It's really been life-changing for me. I've been doing it for about 2 years now. And I can tell you that negative thought, anger, fear, ignorance, it carries a lot of weight. It may not be something you're physically holding, but it can still weigh you down. Once you let go, it's like you can breathe again. And you feel physically and mentally lighter. I have experienced this before. Our young people have a lot on their shoulders, figuratively speaking. If they can find a way to let go of the past, forgive themselves, knowing that it's not their fault, their situation that they're in, they can start to live better, happier lives. And that could also help them physically as well. Once you get rid of the emotional baggage you're carrying, and you start to feel lighter, you start to think more about yourself and make better decisions for yourself. Exercising more, eating healthier, doing activities that make you a better person. And I played less video games when I knew I was going to college. I don't even play video games today, except for with friends. Family involvement and support. Looking at school staff members as well, that they demonstrate a strong commitment to family involvement and understand its critical role in supporting high achievement, access to post-secondary education, employment, and other successful adult outcomes. Thinking about some of the IEP meetings that I've been through and that I've heard about with other people. When I first started attending my IEP meetings, I was in there for maybe a couple of minutes. By the time I was past college or about to graduate college, I was leading a team of like 20 people. I was in the driver's seat. But our young people are taking a back seat to their life or their transition plan. I was in California and one woman said that one transition team didn't allow the young person in his own transition plan meeting. They feared for his self-esteem. They thought they would say such terrible things about him and he would just break down. But I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that our young people need to be involved in their own transition plan meetings, even if it's for a short while, even if it's to say something that may not necessarily be correct, to clarify situations. In my case, there was one time I mentioned vocabulary wasn't my strongest suit. One test showed I was off the charts in vocabulary. One test showed I was failing miserably in vocabulary. So I had to tell my team, which is it, people? Get that clarification. And our young people need to be taught how to read their own IEPs, what it means, why it's important to them, so they can say, oh, I don't think that's true, or I don't want to be this person or pursue this career you think I want to be. That's what builds self-advocacy and helps them really ask for what they need and understand why it's important to them. So they're living the life they want versus the life that others want for them. And educators should be open to the idea of having parents and the young person present so that all the input can be considered and the best educated decision made. Looking at school-based prep experiences, we have the state education agencies and the local education agencies providing youth with equitable access to a full range of academic and non-academic courses and programs of studies. Like I mentioned, the workability program that I'm in, and I understand here in Texas you have the educational service centers. Out in California we call them regional centers. But they allow for young people to have independent living skills classes or get some real life experience, some opportunities to go out into the community and see what is out there for them. Because the more exposure our young people have to the real world and real life experiences, the better opportunities they have and the better chances they have of becoming their best selves. Really working together as a team. It's not always about academics either. Some real personal experiences. I once had an experience where my workability, or rather it was like they call it path point. I had a person actually take me, funny story, to a strip club. Now that got your attention, didn't it? Real life experiences. Because young men need to be taught about boundaries, not touching women in certain places or at certain times. The value of money. Not drinking too much. Knock on wood, they don't have to go through that the hard way, but at least it gets brought out there. So if they ever were to find themselves in that situation, or a friend says, hey, want to go to a strip club with me? And they're like, what's that? Or I don't want to. Sometimes they have to see what's out there or go through it, and with an ally, with a trusted friend who will keep them safe, so that way they can do better if it comes up again. Looking at career preparation, work experience. We've gone over this a little bit with the workability and possible job shadowing, more exposure to what's out there. Youth participating in career awareness, exploration, and preparatory activities in school and community-based settings. By letting our kids know what's out there for them, and not even kids, but we'll call them young people, young adults, what kind of jobs are out there for them, and help them understand that there is actual work involved. Practice asking for accommodations, practice going through a mock interview and having these real life experiences where they can be better and productive members of society. This is what's going to help solve the unemployment and underemployment difficulties that our young people are experiencing. I know how difficult it can be to get through an interview and also follow up. And during my times of mock interviews I had at CSUN, did you know that sending a thank you email or a thank you card to somebody you interviewed with could mean the difference between you getting that job and not? About 9 out of 10 jobs that I got, or maybe a second interview for, I had sent not an email, but a paper thank you card to that person. They may have put it on their desk or kept it as like a souvenir. And that's what helps create the memory and helps really establish that relationship. So our young people can do things that leave a lasting impression, in a good way, mind you, and help them get that job and maybe one day move up in the ranks like I did at Disney. I apologize for the yellow there. This is connecting activities. Organizations coordinating services, aligning their missions, policies, procedures, data, and resources to equitably serve all youth and ensure the provision of a unified, flexible array of programs, services, accommodations, and support. This is almost like tying everything up that we've talked about with a bow. All team members, all allies, all parties on the same page working for the young person's best possible life. This is what's going to help bring out the best in our young people, and in the process, you will become your best selves. So a little summary chart there, and this is all available in the handouts. The presentation is available online. Go ahead and take a picture there. Looking at those key principles, we've gone over high expectations for all youth, including youth with disabilities. I really want to encourage you to presume that competence. Know that they can, know that they will. It might take a little longer, it might take a little more patience, but taking that time and patience will mean the world to them and help them be better. That's what my manager did at Disney. She allowed me to ask that question 3 or 4 times until it finally sunk in. Once it sunk in, it stayed. And I was able to apply that information later and even document it for future years to be distributed to other interns. Equality of opportunity for everyone, including non-discrimination, individualization, inclusion, and integration. We talked about the idea that a workability program said, oh, the young person can only reshelve videos. No, give them more responsibilities. See what else they can do. For instance, that job that it didn't work out so well with the one manager, they did allow me to take on another job in the company. Mind you, it paid less, but I got more responsibility and more exposure to other aspects of accounting, like finance, treasury, internal audit. And I got to work with the company's executives directly. They knew I was really good at grammar and punctuation and identifying spelling errors in reports. So they actually had me reviewing like their 10 Qs and their 10 Ks, these reports that would eventually go public. And they relied on me to make sure the numbers jived and that everything looked all right grammatically. So I'm directly helping this company with my special skill of being a grammar warrior, as my senior college prep English grammar teacher called it, grammar warrior. Full participation through self-determination, informed choice, and participation in decision-making. I cannot emphasize it enough that our young people have to be the ones in the driver's seat. They won't seat themselves. It's up to you to help them get there. And yes, you can still have good intentions and wanting the best for your young people, but they are the ones that have to live their life. They're the ones that ultimately have to drive things forward. Looking at independent living, including skills development and long-term supports and services. Rather than having your young person live with you until the day you die, see that there is a future for them. Believe that they can, once they are taught, possibly one skill at a time until they master it, but once they are empowered, they can be independent, productive members of society. Competitive employment and economic self-sufficiency, which may include supports. It's up to the young people to disclose about their disability and how it affects them. We've talked about know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. It can apply personally, it can also apply professionally. I mentioned I would like my directions in writing, or I may have to have the question answered many times. Once our young people know how their disability affects them, how they can request accommodations, and also have an idea of what accommodations are available. Because again, an employer doesn't want to be faced with the situation like, I have a disability, what are you going to do about it? By doing your research, having a support system like a job coach available, and allowing for our young people to have that opportunity and that exposure, that's what's going to help them be better. Better workplace rapport, better customer relations, and better efficient processes. Individualized, person-driven, and culturally and linguistically appropriate transition planning. It's not one size fits all when it comes to people with autism. Like Dr. Stephen Shore said, you meet one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Everyone has to be looked at individually, their own situation, their own circumstances, their own skill set, and then they can start to move forward and have the skills, the accommodations, the services they need put into play. So a few last pointers for putting together a transition plan, and we do have more information on transition plans coming in Come to Life. You may have noticed there's volume 1 on the spine. We're going to have volume 2 coming out, which will help teachers, parents, and other adults navigate the educational system and really prepare an effective transition plan. So this is the prequel to transition, then we're going to address transition directly. But some ideas to keep in mind when it comes to transition planning. How many of you have read Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Great book, isn't it? Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. Starting with the outcome in mind. What do you want for the kid? What's that light at the end of the tunnel, or that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or that trophy at the top of the ladder, however you may choose to visualize it. And always remember that that is what you're shooting for. And the young person having some kind of goal or finish line that they can work towards, to keep their eye on that prize. Assessing and having it be often, because how many of you have had situations where you had your kid or a young person put in the school system and then figure, oh, the school system's got it, I don't have to worry about it or monitor it. Oftentimes the school system might not get it down. Their progress might be a little shorthanded. Much like with my mother checking on me at that job, 3 months in, I'm still reshelving videos. Let's step up the game a little bit here. Statement of individual preferences. Everyone has their dreams, their special interests, their tastes, what they like, and we should consider that rather than dismiss it. The idea of George Lucas, me being George Lucas's accountant, my mother set reality in for me, but I embraced it. And when you think about it, Disney later acquired Lucasfilm after I left the company, so retroactively and indirectly, I did accomplish my goal of becoming George Lucas's accountant. Our young people's choices matter, and we should honor them. Yes, we do have to set reality into play and let them know that there's actual work involved, but what they say matters. We have to listen to them. Have specific steps, methods, and resources needed to meet those goals. And sometimes if the resources aren't available, you can create them on your own, or find a way by putting your heads together to make it happen, much like I did with that board game club that I have. Where there's a will, there is a way. Or for those that speak Spanish, querer es poder. There's a will, there's a way. Instruction in academic, vocational, social, and independent living skills. Our young people need to be taught directly and explicitly how to do certain things. Like for me, I spent 10th and 11th grade at a school outside of the gen ed public school system learning about social skills, body language, nonverbal communication. And I can tell you that really made a huge difference for me. Now I'm more mindful of eye contact and tone of voice and posture and proximity, all those things you don't really think about until they're brought to your attention, or at least in my experience. Once our young people are directly and explicitly taught these things, can they begin to move forward at a better pace? Community experiences and skills. Encourage your young people to go out there and see what life has to offer them. Even if it's scary at first, even if it's like a block from home, which may turn into a mile, which may turn into another city, which may turn, starting small and working your way up. So at least they get some exposure and some fresh air so that they know there is life outside of their little cocoon or own room. And I know some parents are afraid to let their kid out into the real world. Like they want to coddle them, or they think the outside world is terrible, they're not going to accept the kid. Well, if I told you that every little caterpillar eventually goes through the cocoon stage, once they become a butterfly, that's when they fly. Our young people should have the opportunity to spread their wings and see what's out there for them. Even if it's scary, even if you have to go through that difficult cocoon phase, that evolution, it helps them become their best selves. Exploring service and provider organizations. Sometimes it's through word of mouth, sometimes it's through Google searching. I remember one time my mother and I was about to go off to college, and our transition organization just handed us this sheet with a bunch of organizations and links on it. They may as well have said, go look it up in the phone book, back when they had them. I think they're still around, phone books. The point is, finding out what organizations are out there and how they can help your young person be better, and if needed, form one of your own. When there's an unmet need, you meet it. And touching up again on methods to evaluate the success of the plan, tying into the assess, monitor it regularly. Revisit it every couple of weeks or months to find out if things are on track. If they're not on track, figure out why not and address it accordingly. If that hadn't happened, I probably would still be reshelving videos at Hollywood Video. So what do we know about the clock and the calendar in autism? At least it's been suggested that someone with autism functions at a level about maybe 2/3 of their calendar age. It's been suggested. So let's say an 18-year-old, 2/3 of 18 is 12. So a young person, 18 years old, about to graduate high school, would you let a 12-year-old out into the wild thinking they've got all they need to live their life? Probably not. So why do we do it? Why do we let young people with autism think they've got it and they can just roll with it? Keeping that transition plan, that education plan open. Slow things down. When I was learning to drive, my mother once said to the driving instructor who had the second pedal in the car, she basically said, "The cash box is open, the clock is not ticking, bring him back when he's a safe driver." About 30 lessons later, I was ready to be a driver, and I passed the test, the driving test, on my first attempt. Take the time. Be patient with the young people so that they can learn the skills needed to succeed. Plan to continue at their own pace. Take the time they need. I needed 30 or so instructional sessions before I could drive. It may take more or less with your young person, but at least you are going around their learning style, their learning abilities, so that they can eventually do what needs to be done. Starting the plan early. If you're starting at, let's say, 18 years old, they're about to graduate, it's too late. The earlier, the better. And not that there's no hope if you were at 18 years old and didn't have a plan. You can regroup, reassemble, start to plan things out again. Go through that process of self-discovery and come to life. Gather your allies and figure out how you can help the young person in your life be their best selves. It's never too late. Because I was diagnosed with autism at 13, but I still was able to come out of my shell and make things happen for myself personally and professionally. And it can happen and work for you too. Keeping that educational plan, that transition plan open till 22. When you hold back that diploma, it keeps it open. And again, all those services I received, transition specialist, speech and language, occupational therapy, Department of Rehabilitation, I had my transition plan, my IEP open until I was well into college, until the school district held up its end of the bargain because my parents held that school district accountable. And it's up to you to hold such organizations accountable so you get what is needed for the young people in your lives, even if it means holding back the diploma. Focus on the full range of needed and useful skills rather than focusing on just one or the other. And while we do encourage and come to life finding your niche, what you do really well, what people could pay you for, what could maybe translate into a job, if you still haven't addressed all those opportunities for improvement, all those things that could be holding you back socially or behaviorally, then all that progress could be undone. One passion project my mother and I have is Be Safe. It's teaching young people how to interact with police officers through video modeling, because all of that progress, the college diploma, getting the first job, finally finding a girlfriend, it can all be undone if you say or do the wrong thing to a police officer. It's the reason they say safety first. So some of you have seen the book going around the audience here, Come to Life. This is my passion project. And I really hope that you will get a chance to flip through the pages. If you didn't, I will also be signing in at the top of the escalator here today. Really want to thank you for your time today. And we have a cameraman here. He's been filming this for a demo video that's going to end up on my website. I'd like to invite you to give a testimonial of what you heard today, or what you liked about the presentation, what I had to say, the style, etc. I really want to thank you very much for being here today. Here's my contact information.